What is up, you guys? Welcome back to Mini TV Reviews. I am your host, Mel, and today we're going to be discussing Only Murders in the Building. That's right, y'all. This is Season 5, Episode 5, titled Tongue Tied. I hope you guys have had a wonderful week thus far, y'all. We made it to Friday. Amen and amen. So without further ado, let's go ahead, get into the synopsis real quick, and then we're going to get right into the episode. So the synopsis for this one is: thwarted in their investigative podcast plans, Mabel and Oliver look for help from the Arconia staff as Charles dines with another suspect and gets caught up in catching more than he bargained for. Okay, y'all. It sounds like it's going to be a good episode, so let's go ahead and get into it. So this episode starts off with a voiceover from our favorite lady, our favorite detective, Detective Williams. And she was like, you know what the rich value the most? What money can really do? It can buy silence, okay? Now, for most of us, we would just go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff. We might invest in stuff, but being rich means having power. And with that power, you can buy that silence. You can do whatever you want to with that. Okay. And of course, people ain't going to try to talk about the rich in a negative light, because you might get sued, right? They might bring the wrath down on you. So a lot of people are afraid to speak up when they do something wrong. So as she's saying that, they're showing her the gambling room, the gaming room, in the basement of the Arconia, and she was like, oh my goodness, y'all just now finding this out? Y'all been here for 5 years at least, and you just now saying something? You just now finding this gaming room? Okay. And so they're trying to show her the table. They show her the little secret hidden compartment where they found the money at, but everything looked like it's been cleaned up. And so now what do? So she was like, look, it's clear that somebody done came in here and cleaned this mess up. So if all else fails, you need to talk to the help, because the rich people are always doing dumb stuff in front of them, always committing crimes and expecting the little people like us to clean it up. Okay. So it's got to be somebody on the inside of the building. So that might be helpful in your investigation. So go talk to the help. And so in the meantime, we got to figure out who this finger belonged to. Obviously, it's not Jay Fluke, so who could it be? So she ended up mentioning that the cards were given to her by Sophia. And so Charles was like, oh, don't worry about that. I can go handle her. Okay. We had a little something going back when we was in Staten Island. So let me go see if I can work my magic again. And then he winked. So Detective William was like, look, I would help y'all. Oh, and then y'all, they ended up showing her the picture about the police coming and saying that, Nikki was found in a certain spot in the dry cleaners. So Charles showed her the picture of the police officers, and she was like, oh yeah, I know. Yeah, and that's Freddie and da-da-da-da. And she was like, hell no, I don't know them folks. Okay? Why would you think that I know them? Do you know how many people work in the precinct? She said, besides, I wouldn't be ratting them folks out no way, because the last person that tried to uncover some dirty cops, they had to move to Florida. And that's the last thing you want to do right now. Okay? So that's going to be a hell no for me. Y'all keep doing what y'all do, and then just call me for any updates. I got to get to the preschool. I'm on snack duty. So then they go upstairs, and y'all, Charles is busy on his phone, right? And so they was like, Charles, what you over there doing? You ain't even paying attention to what we got going on. Y'all, he over there swiping. He done got signed up for the apps, y'all, the dating apps. Now, the one that he is fond of right now is called Last Gasp. You heard me right. Last Gasp. When I tell you, I hollered like the comedic genius on this show for Charles and Oliver is hilarious, right? So Mabel was like, you know what? I'm going to be a good friend to you in a few minutes, but it's been really rough these last couple days. So I'm going to go ahead and get a good giggle off of you real quick. So they look at his profile, y'all. Why he done clicked that he's bi-curious. He was like, oh, I thought that said bi-coastal. And I was like, now, Charles, you too grown and you got a set of glasses on for you to be clicking and thinking that they say bi-coastal. And then in the description for what he's like looking for in a mate, he was like the clicker. Because can't nobody find a remote. Now, me and my friend a long time ago was like, wouldn't it be really smart if somebody were to develop an app? Never mind, I ain't gonna need to tell y'all that, okay? Because somebody gonna go out there and patent it. It's probably already, an app out there for it. But, yeah, I ain't gonna tell y'all that. I'm gonna keep that to myself. And so she was like, oh, this is really cute. And he's just got so much energy, right? And he picks up this magazine and it's got an attractive lady on it. And Mabel, he starts making all these offhanded comments about how attractive she is. And Mabel was like, yeah, this is weird. I don't know what's going on with you, but clearly I don't need to be here for all of this. So he was like, oh, I'm just taking a multivitamin. But as soon as she leaves, he brings Oliver in and was like, yes, I'm taking testosterone. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. Yeah, because I really thought that they was going to try to get Charles up out of here. Okay? No, he's just taking a testosterone pills. Thank goodness, right? So he was like, yeah, it's giving me so much energy. My mouth tastes like pennies in the morning, but I think it's working. And for whatever reason, it's changing his scent because now he's attracting cats. And I was like, I don't think that's a good thing. Is it like a tuna salmon? Like, what is it? So anywho, he ends up picking Oliver up, and I was like, yeah, it must be working, y'all. He finna be in them bodybuilding competitions like Lil Jon. Lil Jon is out there looking good, y'all. And so when we come back from the opening, rest in peace, Lester. Oliver and Mabel are going down to the basement where, the maids and everybody are. Just to try to get some information from this lady named Ursula. Now, when they get down there with, y'all, what's the new doorman's name? I don't even remember because we hadn't seen him in a couple episodes. Anywho, he's down there with them, right? And they run into Howard with Lester. I robot Lester. So that was like, what you doing down here? And he ended up telling the new doorman, hey, you ain't got to worry about dropping a prescription off for this particular tenant because Lester already did it. And he was like, oh, but she actually likes it when I drop it off to her, because sometimes people like the person-to-person interaction, right? And you don't want all them robots all up in your business all the time. And so he was like, actually, Lester delivers all the prescriptions and all of the things that need to be delivered overnight because he don't need sleep. He just needs to be charged up every now and then, right? So I was like, what y'all doing down here, Howard? So he was like, look, because once Howard had asked them what they were doing down there, they were kind of secretive about it. And he was like, that's okay, don't worry about it. I ain't trying to be a part of your little mystery trio no more. Okay, I've traded up. Power is what I want now. And I was like, Howard, why would you say that? Why would you say that? And so he says that he's in the business of secrets. Okay. Mainly it seems like Lester has been picking up on these medical secrets. And so he starts violating all the HIPAA laws, all the HIPAA codes, and telling us who got gout and who got this and who got that. And so Howard was like, hey, so I told you, you can't be doing that. Okay. You can't be doing that. And so I don't know, the way that Howard said that had me side-eyeing him just a little bit because we know that it's somebody in the inside of the building that's helping whoever, helping these big influence, these billionaires get away with whatever they're getting away with. So then they find Ursula, and Ursula initially is trying to sell them some gut pellets. Now, we know that this is all a ruse for her. And so Oliver just ends up paying her a little bit of money to give them a little bit of information about who was there that night. And so she ends up telling them that Lester always put in maintenance requests or, cleanup requests to this dude named Tommy the Tongue. And so Oliver was like, what does that mean? Is that like a silver tongue, split tongue, no tongue? Like, what's going on? And so she looking at them sideways because Y'all ain't never been down here. Okay, people are replaced. The robots are replacing us. People ain't tipping like they used to tip no more. I'm going to be out of a job soon. So I need all the funds that I can get. So if you know that there's a position available down at the casino, you let me know. Okay, whether it's for a dealer or an exotic dancer. Hey, you better shake it, Ursula. So anywho, once she gave them the side eye, like, what y'all asking all these questions for? They was like, we trying to help Lester, and we just want this solved for him. And she was like, look, I would have took a bullet for the little Monopoly man. I was like, oh man, that is the most accurate description of I love that. He didn't have the top hat, but he was close. So she was like, I would have took a bullet for the little Monopoly man. Okay, but how dare y'all come down here and start asking questions, because I ain't never seen y'all down here. Y'all the reason that all this stuff started happening in the first place. And I was like, technically, they not. I mean, Mabel's friend did die. That started it, but what was the reason behind all of that? Wasn't it the one tenant that was into the movies? Wasn't it his son? Or was it him? Anywho, yeah. So she don't really see it too much for them, because they the reason that she may potentially be out of a job pretty soon. So she don't give them no more information about where they can find Tommy the Tongue. Just know that you got a name. So you're going to have to put in some work to get all the rest of the information. So after they leave from Ursula, they end up going to go talk to who they believe is the current trash guy. Okay, his name is Gary. But once they get there, they realize that this guy's name is Miller. And Miller has been working there for the past 3 years. Gary has been retired that long. And so, of course, they're not aware of what happens underground. It's sort of kind of like, do y'all, from the residents, when they would have the staff above the basement, and then you have people working in the basement, it's sort of kind of like that. They're completely oblivious to what happens as far as like the staffing goes. So he was like, yeah, Miller, I'm Miller, I've been here for the last 3 years. And he starts telling them about what he knows about them based off going through their trash. Now, he asked about Charles and how he's doing with the new testosterone thing. He talks about Oliver and why he decided to deny that offer that was sent up for his apartment. And Mabel was like, whoa, now I really didn't want to hear the thing about Charles, but why didn't you mention what was going on with your apartment, Oliver? So then he switches gears real quick, and he tries to ask about Tommy the Tongue. Did he bring some trash down here recently? Okay, and so he was like, yeah, I'm not gonna tell y'all that. I don't share my trash with the tenants. Okay, so he not spilling nobody's secrets for now. So they end up going to go sneak into the staff locker room, and they end up getting caught just as they're discovering that somebody had wrote "Die Lester Die" on the table. So of course they get caught by all of the staff because they're not supposed to be down there. And this is when Randall explains that he's the one that scribbled it on there along with Putnam Sucks, probably because he wasn't talking about human Lester. He was talking about robot Lester. All the robots are coming to replace us. After a while, they won't need us for anything. And so, they brought this new robot in the same week that I'm just now starting here. He was very intimidated by it. He feels threatened work-wise, as well as the rest of the staff. We're all going to be gone after a while. We're all dinosaurs here. And so this is when Oliver takes the time to try to capitalize on gaining their trust by suggesting that they have a tenant meeting or, a building meeting to try to make sure that none of the human staff gets replaced by AI robots. Okay. This is a very good idea. However, I'm not sure if this is going to be executed fairly well because It's Oliver. And I mean, there's only so much that you can do unless all of the tenants decide to come together and agree on this. So over to Charles. Charles is meeting up with Sophia at like this hibachi joint. And they ended up texting him, hey, ask her about Tommy the Tongue and make sure that you stay professional, Charles. Okay? He's like, professional? I'm always professional, But as soon as he sees Sophia, baby, she look cute. Okay? They look like they could be a cute little couple. So he sits down with her at the hibachi table, and it turns out she's not alone. She done bought all 5 of them damn boys. Now, they act like little kids. They act like 5-year-olds, y'all. They really do. Like my kids, they act better than they do. And they're there for Mikey's 36th birthday. He finna be 40 years old, and he walking around with a Jimmy Buffett balloon hat on his head for his birthday. So anywho, they're at a separate table, and this allows Sophia and Charles to have a conversation about Nikki. And he brings up the deck of cards, and she was like, yeah, of course. Of course those cards would have a secret passageway to get to this underground gaming spot that I didn't know about. Of course. So then, just as they're finna get ready to try to have a conversation about it, the hibachi guy, the chef, starts throwing food, right? Now, Charles catches it, and she was like, oh, I can tell this ain't your first time doing this. And he was like, oh, I'm really good with my mouth. I was like, come on, Charles. Listen, this testosterone that he is taking, it's working very well for him. And so not only is he good, but she's good as well. She done caught a couple of items. Now, they was in conversation, and she wasn't able to catch a piece, and it landed in her lap. Why he put his head down there in her lap and eat it up out her lap? And this must have been one of those impromptu scenes, because it looked like she was caught off guard. But she played it off very well. It was very hot and heavy, very romantic, intense, sexually. So, yeah, it got steamy. So she ended up saying how Nikki was not the thug that he was made out to be in the papers. Oh, before they have this conversation, Charles ends up running into the mayor, and the mayor is still trying to get a guest spot on their podcast. Okay, even if it's just to make little sound effects and all that, I could be your soundboard. And Charles was like, yeah, no. So we don't have one of those. We're more murder centric. So I'll call you. Don't call me. So then, back to their conversation, she was saying that Nikki was not this thug that he was made out to be in the papers. How she had always dated these brutes, people in construction, in heavy quotations. And then she stumbled upon Nikki, who was working in the cleaners. And he was this very sweet guy. He loved poetry, very romantical and all of that stuff like that. And so he would tell her all the time how they would run away together and go live on this island where he would write poetry, horrible poetry. He was horrible, y'all. Write this horrible poetry while she's, sipping wine in a big sun hat. Okay, but of course that never happened. And she blames it on her mama. She said that her mama just chiseled away at who he really was until he became this very hardened person who was a womanizer. Okay, cheating and lying, all the things. And I was like, why wouldn't you want better for your daughter? But okay, that's all she used to. Let me be happy for me. But anyway, so Charles was like, yeah, I guess our moms had that in common. They had a couple of things in common. So they've come from a very rough upbringing, but they made it out. And so just as they're having this conversation, she's getting really close to him, and they're trying to keep it professional. And he was like, oh, so, I think that she said something about it's getting really hot in here. It's time for her to go. She finna get ready to go take off all her clothes like Nelly told her to do. So she was like, oh, it's getting hot in here. I'm going to go ahead and head home. And he was like, oh, okay. She was like, you don't want to see me to my car? He was like, I'm trying to keep it professional. And she was like, but I got on red lingerie. And he was like, oh, semi-professional. He's still a man. So she ended up scooting. Instead of her getting out the booth the other way and walking around, she scooted over his lap and put that booty on him. Okay. And so Charles was like, he didn't know what to do. He hadn't felt the touch of a woman in so long, y'all. He didn't know what to do with his hands. And so She was like, Charles, are you coming or not? And he was like, oh, yeah, I'm coming. But what about the boys? And so they over there like, Mom, look at this. Mom, save me. I'm drowning. Y'all, he gurgling the water. I was like, you know what? She said they should be okay as long as they stick together. You hear me, y'all? Y'all stick together. Don't separate. Hold hands if you need to. Y'all, them kids is awful. So before this meeting kicks off, Howard is coming through, and he was like, yeah, I heard about your little meeting that you got going on. Now, of course, they've got flyers and stuff posted up in the elevators and everything, so it was impossible for him to not find out. But anywho, he ends up telling them that Lester has developed this tenant rating scale, if you will, from 1 out of however many tenants are in the building. And he swore up and down that he wasn't going to tell Mabel and Oliver where they ranked, but he sure did. And Mabel tops out right now at 4, while Oliver is at the bottom of the totem pole, it seems, at 243 or 273, something in the twos. Okay, so he was like, out of how many tenants? He'll never tell. Now, they're waiting on Charles to get there. Charles seemed to have a good night, y'all, but we'll get back to that. So they start off this meeting, and Oliver is like, hey, I'm just here to support the staff. We don't want the machines to replace our staff. And if you ask the tenants, that's quite the contrary to how they feel, because they like the robots. They like the fact that they ain't got to bother with trying to make small talk with people. They like the fact that they can get their prescriptions on time, especially Vince, because Vince got this recurring pink eye thing. As a matter of fact, he got the patch on again this episode when he just had it off like last episode. So, yeah, no, okay. They like that they don't have to do as much with the robots, and the biggest thing for I believe, is that they don't have to tip. And so Randall was like, hey, I really do believe that us humans are able to create the connection that you guys didn't even know you needed. For instance, I can tell you who may forget their umbrella. I can tell you who may need their thermostat turned up or down before they get back. And Howard jumps up and was like, yeah, so Lester know all of that. And so Lester starts to get ready to blurt off a list in alphabetical order about the umbrellas. And this is when Ursula jumps up and she was like, look, it's either him or it's us. And the tenants was like, bye, y'all. Now, Oliver tries to wrangle the crowd in and kill some of the tension by having a sing-along, okay? So they start talking about which version of the song that he wants to sing, and then this is when Charles comes in, y'all. Charles is doing his best Elvis impersonation. Yeah, he definitely got hot and bothered last night. He got him a little something, okay? So he's super happy. Mabel is like, yeah, whatever is going on here, everybody else does not need to see this. Don't make this a public thing. Too late. He done walked in with one of his shoes missing, y'all. Hair all over his head. Yeah, it was definitely a good night. So just then, Howard jumps up and was like, yeah, so, Lester is the best thing that's ever happened to this building. He's personally vested in this thing. And so he was like, as a matter of fact, go ahead and show him what you can do, babe. And I was like, when did we give pet nicknames to the damn robots? He is really falling in love. This is on some, y'all remember that movie where the dude had fell in love with his technology? This is what this is giving. Where is Jonathan? Is Jonathan going to be coming back anytime soon? Because his boo thing is lonely. Now, they don't have no children. They got the fur babies, which you can bring the fur babies along on the tour. I just don't understand why Howard is so desperate to find a connection. He can't find a connection with none of the tenants besides using this robot. So he was like, show him what you can do. But y'all, Lester has gone missing. Now, in the midst of all of that action happening, I noticed that Lester started beeping. It was like a beep, beep, beep. So I don't know if he was trying to go back to the charging dock or what have you, right? So he's missing. So I guess this meeting has been adjourned for now. So Charles and Mabel go back to his spot, and she's like, what the hell is going on with you? Okay, I'm glad to see that the testosterone pills are kicking in, but this is messing with your head. And so she was like, oh, don't give me that look. Okay, Oliver wasn't the one that outed you. It was Miller, the trash guy. And so he was like, damn, what happened to Gary? I guess the testosterone pills are working. That memory thing is coming back. Okay, not as forgetful as he was. So anywho, he starts explaining, that he started taking these pills because he was feeling a little down, okay? He's trying to reinvigorate his love life. He needs a Loretta like Oliver. He's just trying to find his Loretta. That's it. And so he apologizes, but he did find out a little bit of information, not necessarily pertaining to the case, but just know that Sophia can work that tongue. They was back there making out like they was a couple of teenagers. Now, they had to, squirm and wiggle a little bit because the boys had their hockey equipment and some old used Lunchable wrappers back there. I was like, again, these are children. These are children, okay? So, needless to say, Charles had a good time, but unfortunately, he did not get any type of pertinent information. And so, he was like, damn, I just wish that Lester was still here. And Mabel was like, well, you know what, as a matter of fact, I think we might be able to make the Lester useful because, Randall or Howard had said that they had uploaded a lot of all of Lester's paperwork into Lester. So if anybody knows anything, it would be the robot. So just as she's saying that, y'all, we get a Travis Scott impersonation of Lester saying, oh no, in the like the auto-tune voice. Sounded just like Travis Scott, y'all. Lester is unlit because Lester has been crashed into the water fountain. Lester is gone. And so much for that paperwork. Now, they end up going over to Oliver's, and Mabel had ended up getting some more information from the coroner. Now, I did forget to mention that she had asked Detective Williams to look into the finger and Tommy the tongue, and she was still waiting on the results to come back from whatever she was searching up. She couldn't find anything aside from like porn stuff, so yeah, that was gonna be a no-go. Okay, now Charles didn't have any useful information. She's still waiting on Detective Williams, and Oliver was like, man, give me a second, I'm trying to process everything, I'm just going through a lot here. And Howard is there. He was like, man, Lester was the only friend that I had in this building. Okay, what am I supposed to do now? So just then he ends up getting a chime to let him know that the new Lester, the replacement 2.0, is on its way. So he's back happy again. So he ends up leaving out, right? So as he's leaving out, here comes Miller. Now, Miller has been able to get them the trash. I forgot to tell y'all that they had went down there to go talk to him in the first place because they needed the trash from the night of the accidents, or the incident, excuse me. And so they were trying to catch it before the trash went out. Now, Miller wasn't trying to give them no information, but now that he was able to take out Lester, I believe that's what he said, he was able to kill a robot. So I'm assuming that he's the responsible party, even though we saw him in the meeting. So I was like, how quickly did you run away, and how did you make that happen? So anywho, he was like, hey y'all, so here's this garbage that y'all had asked me to collect from the night of the incident for Lester and Tommy the tongue. So here it is. He done made it into a whole collage, a portrait, if you will, of Lester. And it's literally all the trash from that night. I was like, oh, okay. Okay. Very creative. A little smelly, but very creative. So he ended up going on his way, and before he left out, Oliver had got his attention, was like, hey Miller, so about that offer, do you still have that? He was like, yeah, here it is. Now, he had told Mabel that he wasn't gonna move out, but she just saw him take back the paperwork for that offer. So now her feelings are a little bit hurt. Okay, so after he leaves, Charles was like, hey y'all, so I don't want y'all to get upset, but I think I lost my phone. I think I left my phone in Sophia's minivan in the back seat. And so, of course, Mabel is upset. We find out that Charles He done gave up the passcode in the throes of passion. He revealed his passcode, and so now Sophia might have seen everything from Nikki's body to the the murder investigation board on his phone. Done gave up all the goods. So you thought she didn't walk away with nothing. Unless she just don't want to look back at her back seat. So anywho, Mabel ends up turning on the Find My Phone. And they're tracking it. Now, in the process of them tracking it, they're talking about how she's a potential suspect and all of this, and we don't know where it's going. Oliver is driving, and so Oliver ends up taking a shortcut, and they was like, hey, where you going? And he was like, oh, it's okay. I'm familiar with this area. I used to live here. And they look at him like, what? Now, they headed to Flatbush, by the way. So Oliver may have some explaining to do in just a little bit, okay? It seems like he may have come from a rough background as well. So as they're looking at him, Mabel ends up getting a phone call from Detective Williams and was like, hey, so I was able to get a hit off of what you told me to look for, and it turns out that Tommy the Tongue is not a person, but instead a company, okay? And this company had a boatload of money that, you know, was with the company, but all of a sudden somebody has withdrawn all of the money just this morning. Okay, but I'm finna get ready to head that way now. And so they happen to blurt out the address where Sophia is headed to with Charles's phone in the back seat or somewhere on her person. And she was like, yeah, that's the address that I'm finna get ready to head to. So they pulled up. And she was like, yeah, so I just want to let y'all know I strongly advise against you going in there. And so just as they're saying that, Sophia's getting out the car and she knocks on the door, and Detective Williams is like, you know, who would want to kill those dudes for the money? And we see her talking to what looks to be another woman in glasses. And they were like, well, shit, it might be the wives. It might be their wives. Enough is enough. True stories have happened where the wives get together and they take out each other's husbands. Yeah. But that's the way the episode ends, y'all. Has Charles fallen in love with another murderer? Probably not. Okay. But Sophia is definitely moving suspiciously. All right, but that's the way the episode ends. Y'all let me know what y'all thought about it, okay? You can reach me at Me and You TV Reviews on Facebook and on Instagram. You can also reach me at My TV Reviews Podcast without the S on the end at gmail.com. I love y'all. I hope you guys have a wonderful start to your weekend. Please stay safe out there as you enjoy. And until we meet over the airwaves again, I am Mo, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.